everyone, it's Jessie G here. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to Jessie's Hangout. This is episode number 20. Holy moly. This is all about Lizzie Borden. This will just be in one part episode. I'm just going to kind of briefly run through the case and then discuss a little bit about it and kind of give you some informational stuff that I found out. And some of it's 100%, some of it's not, so don't quote me on some of it. So anyways, before I get started, you guys saw 3 different things that came across your screen before the show started. It was a copyright disclaimer, a trigger sensitive warning, and also an age warning. I'm going to go ahead and reread through all 3 of those again, and you can do what you need to do at your own discretion. So without further ado, let's get into it. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. For fair use is a use permitted by copyright statutes that might otherwise be interfering. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. If that made it all clear out there. Next one. If you are sensitive or triggered by any of the topics that are talked about in today's episode, I highly recommend you don't listen to today's episode. If you do choose to listen to today's episode at your own discretion, I highly recommend you listen to it with a emotional support system, such as your partner, your grandparent, your significant other, somebody that you can sit down with you and listen to today's episode with, because you never know if somebody is going to be triggered or sensitive by any of this, or they might have went through something similar to this case, and it can be very traumatic sometimes. So that's why I put the warning and the disclaimer also for the copyright fragment. The disclaimer is also there because I want you guys to be well aware of that this channel does not promote or does it encourage people to violate any of the copyright laws that are set for YouTube. It does not do that whatsoever, nor will it ever do that, so that's why those are there. If you're under the age of 18, this is not an episode for you to be watching. Sorry, but this is an episode for minor ears. So, without further ado, now that I've said all of that, you guys take all that into your own discretion. But now that I've said that, let's get into today's episode. Today's episode is all about Lizzie Borden. A little bit about her before I kind of get into her full background. The Lizzie Borden case. Lizzie Borden was an American woman tried and acquitted of the August 4th, 1892 axe murders of her father and stepmother in Fall River, Massachusetts. This is a little bit about what the case is going to be about, and a little bit about her. A little bit more about her. Lizzie Borden was born July the 19th, 1860, in Fall Rivers, Massachusetts, to Sarah Borden and Andrew Jackson Borden. Her father was an English and Welsh descendant. He struggled financially as a young man, but then he grew into more money when he became a coffin furniture maker. He was very frugal with his money. He really wasn't a really good known man to the town because he was so frugal. He made a lot of enemies. That's why that played a lot into the case and everything, because of his background and because of his history. Sarah, her mother, had passed away. I'm not sure exactly how old Lizzie was when her mother passed away, or what she passed away of. I'm not really sure as to the specifics as to what happened. But I know 3 years after she had died, Andrew Burton married Abby DeFree. Some speculate that Abby married Andrew because of his wealth and because of who he was and everything. So some people speculate that, but I also know that they didn't really have a good relationship. And how do I know this is because one of the maids that was immigrated from Ireland, who was about 25 years old, made a statement that Lizzie and Emma rarely ate dinner with her parents. They rarely ate in the same room, so that goes to show you something. Um, I'm not really sure exactly as to the relationship she had with Abby. I'm not really sure if it was really a good or a bad relationship. I do know she was really close to her sister, Emma Burton. She was the oldest out of the two of them. I do know that those two sisters were really close to each other. I know they did everything together. Um, I do know that uh, because of the murders and because of her being known to everybody in the town and because of all of the songs, the rhymes and things that were made about her and all the speculations that were put against her after the trial and everything. I do know that there was a huge strain between her and her sister, and I know that um, it really made Emma uneasy living with her sister and the way that she was acting after everything. I know that really unsettled Emma, and she moved to New Hampshire, Newmarket, New Hampshire. Um, that's where she had moved to, and she also had moved, but the day before she had died, she had moved to a nursing home in that area, due to a lot of health issues and everything, um, which I'll get into more of that. Um, Also, it was also stated that Emma was very involved with the church a lot. Um, I'm not really sure if uh, Lizzie was really involved with that type of thing. I do know that, like I said, I do know her father made a lot of enemies because of his free-girlness. Um, so it pretty much just kind of goes to show um, it just kind of really goes to show how much of a strain it was between her and the family. It kind of goes to show also that it's, how do I put this? It's really, really hard for a family, and it would, no matter what the times were, it's really hard for a biological children of a father or the mother, whoever is living, to adjust to a life of being with a stepmother after being with just being the three of them for 3 years, and then turning around and him marrying this woman who was speculated to have married him because of his wealth. It must have been really hard for the both of them mentally and physically, because here's this woman that comes into their life, ends up being a stepmother, but she never really called her mother. She called her Miss Burton a lot. She never really addressed her as her mother. I'm pretty sure she addressed Andrew Burton as her father a lot, but she never really called Abby her mother a lot. Um, she just called her by that. That really also goes to show that she never really acknowledged Abby as her mother, really. Um, which is really strange, but you can also it also goes to show the strain and and how much of a friction there was between the two of them as well. Um, uh, it was also stated that several days before the murder, um, the entire household took violently ill. Abby feared that there was poison that had been done because Andrew was not a popular man. Um, uh, it was also stated a few weeks before the murder, there was somebody that was supposed to come and discuss the business matters with Andrew. There was just a lot of speculation before the murders. Um, the murders took place on August the 4th, 1892. Both her stepmother and her father were both killed brutally, and I think there was a maid that was killed brutally. I'm not really sure. Don't quote me on that one. But they were killed brutally with the axe. It was so bad that you couldn't see her father's face anymore. I'm not really sure exactly how bad the stepmother was. They did find him dead on the couch. He would come in after a long day and he would always take a nap on this couch. And it was a very elegant leather couch. He would always lay on it. And that's where they found him at. The trial took place on June the 5th, 1893. It was about a year after the murders. Um, it took the juries, after listening to all of this, and even the investigators went to talk to Lizzie, and some of the things that when they were talking to her, it was also said that sometimes the questions were strange and uh, directly. There was just her story was so weird, and when she was answering questions, it was weird, and I think that was why it made it so easy for them to speculate that she had done it, and it made it so easy for them to place her at the scene, with the axe, She did testify at her trial. She did give a statement as to what the murders were, as to where she was, what she was wearing, where she was, how it happened, and all that type of stuff. It was also, they made inquiries, and, the trial was, really long. And like I said, it took the jury an hour and a half to deliberate. And when the jury came back, they found her not guilty of the charges. She was acquitted of the charges. She was released. And being in a small town back in the 1800s and knowing that her father really wasn't a popular man made it even worse because everybody looked at Lizzie different. There was skit rhymes of little girls who would jump rope and they would sing different things. They would talk. There was a lot of speculations as to why Lizzie did what she did and why she acted the way that she was acting. There were people also speculated in the back recesses of their mind. They knew that Lizzie was the one that did it and that she got off scot-free for it. There was a lot of people upset about it. There was just a lot of conspiracy theories as to whether or not she did or didn't do it. It was also, as I was kind of talking about, there was also a strain between her and Emma because of the murders, because of the popularityness, because of the light that was shown upon her sister after the murders. and she moved out of the house. Neither of them both got married. Neither of them had any children that I'm aware of. It was just really, they even have when you look it up on the Wik, there's even a picture of the jury. They were all men too. Um, uh, it was just really, it was a really strange, very messed up case. And there was a lot of movies and a lot of books made about Lizzie and her sister and her family. Um, there was a lot of people who really talked about her personality and who she was, and a lot about Emma and who she was, and that type of thing. They also talk about how much her house was and where the money went to family and um, rescue centers and all that type of stuff. Her house is still there to this day. It's turned into a museum where you can go through and see things. There was also a really popular show that people are not really thrilled with. It's Ghost Avengers. A lot of people don't like Zack. A lot of people do. It's just kind of a love or hate type thing. He did an investigation in that house, and he was very creeped out by this house. There was a lot of bad energy in that house, which really isn't surprising considering two people were brutally murdered in that house along with the maid. So, it's very strange. It also, some of the movies kind of painted Lizzie in a different light. A lot of the descriptions of who she was and how she acted, um, uh, that type of thing. So, it was just really, she was really popular after that, and not in good ways. Um, you know, there's a good light to be shed upon, and she had a really bad light shined on her and her sister, and it's really rough, to live a life in the 1800s, to be a woman, to have a father like that, and to have a father who's not popular, and to have married a woman who everybody speculates married him for his wealth, and to know that Emma and Lizzie really weren't around their two parents much. They really didn't sound like they had much to do with them. Um, it's just really sad. And neither of them married. As I was saying, neither of them married. Which is even more sad, but I could see why Lizzie didn't, because of her past and because of the fact that she was known to be a murderess, and knowing that she was acquitted, I don't think any man in their right minds would want anything to do with her, which is sad and tragic, but it's true. On June the 1st, 1927, at the age of 66, about a year after getting her gallbladder removed, Lizzie Borden died of pneumonia in her house in Massachusetts. Her funeral was very discreet. There wasn't a whole lot of descriptions of her funeral. There was very few people that showed up to her funeral. She was buried in the family plot. And about 9 days later in Newmarket, New Hampshire, not long after her sister had moved into a nursing home, like I said, because of health issues, she passed away. She was buried next to her sister. They were buried side by side with each other. She was 76 years old. She died. She died in a nursing home in that area. So yeah, it was very, very heart wrenching, to say the least. and very sad to say the least. It was a very tragic case. There's a lot of cases that end up this way, like the O.J. Simpson case ended up that way. That's another example of it. There's a lot of cases that where you've had the evidence and everything, but sometimes even with the evidence and even with the evidence and without the witnesses, or with the witnesses and the evidence, sometimes some of the cases don't always stand on its own merit together. So it makes it harder to place somebody at the scene and place them as the person that did it, because you're having to not only convince the jury, you're having to convince the judge and convince the people that this person did this. So, to be a convicted person who was tried and acquitted of it, there were so many skit rhymes made about her that just make you creeped out. Even some of her pictures were a little creepy. Some of them were a little uneasy. But it's really sad that something like this happened. Also, when you do look up the Lizzie Borden case, Borden, it does show the crime scene photos of where they found her father and her mother, like I was mentioning, and it's pretty brutal, to say the least. It was just, it was just very tragic, Even when you look up Emma, there's a lot of pictures between her and her sister. She never married either. Her mother, I did look it up. Now in my notes, her mother did die on March the 26th, 1863 in Fall River, Massachusetts. About 4 years after Lizzie was born, so she had to have been really, 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 really young when she had died, which is really sad, because she had Emma first and then Lizzie, which is really sad. To be that young when your mother dies and then 3 years later turn around and marry somebody else. So it's very tragic. But back in the 1800s, there were so many diseases around. There were so much things that went around, and him not being a very popular guy probably didn't help either. So, it was very tragic, to lose your mother at a young age. And, it's just, I can't imagine that, because, that could have played a lot into what Lizzie Borden did. That could have played a lot into what her mind was, I mean, being so young and then spending 3 years of your life with it just being your father, and the two of you, and not really having the best relationship with her father, and turning around and marrying another woman that she called her Mrs. Borden, and that could put a lot of strain into why she snapped and did what she did, but I still think that she did it. I have no doubt that she did it. It was brutal that way that her parents died. But like I said, there were so many factors as to the case and why she was acquitted. I think the reason why she was acquitted, because he wasn't a popular man. They had taken ill to begin with, and that Abby was worried that he had gotten poisoned or something. The fact that she was hardly ever around when they ate dinner or did anything. There wasn't really much of a relationship, and that he was really frugal a lot. So, there's a lot of things that people speculate, and a lot of things that I think happened. So, I can see why she was acquitted, but I also know that there was possibility of knowing that she did do it. And she's in a lot of the uh, well-known books of about murder, women women who are murderers, I should say. So, it's pretty strange. But anyways, I hope you guys took a lot out of today's episode. This was only a first part. Stay tuned for episode 21. It's going to be all about Jack the Ripper. That was one of the most creepiest cases, and then after that is the Countess Elizabeth Bathory. So stay tuned for those two. I still have yet to figure out what the fifth one is, but it might just be 4 different people I talk about in this one. So I hope you guys will take a lot out of this. I hope you guys will take a lot of interest out of this. I hope you guys have learned a lot about this person and about this case. But anyways, if you hadn't hit that red subscribe button, hit that red subscribe button and that notification bell, so you'll be notified as to when I upload more episodes in the future and other videos in the future as well. If you do choose to stay more notified and more up to date with everything, follow me on all of my social medias. They're listed in the description box below this episode. Also, feel free to go check out my old second channel. It has episodes 1 through 8. I will put the channel name in the description. Just go check it out for yourself. I hope you guys have an awesome day or night or morning wherever you're watching this from, and I will catch you guys in my next episode. Later.